Welcome back, Dolphins. Today we're going to be discussing something that maybe all of us have kind of thought about, but don't know what to go about it. It's Tyreek Hill. And this is what I'm saying, and I think I kind of elaborated on this in the last video, that the thing about Tyreek Hill is he's done a lot of really good stuff for us. But what I truly believe in and what I think is really starting to become very evident in the Dolphins team is that he might be a product of the Mike McDaniel system, where right now, we're looking back at the years of where Tyreek Hill would do these crazy awesome 40-yard bombs and all that stuff. But a lot of these plays, most of the time he was kind of like wide open, and Tua just put the ball in the perfect spot and he would catch it, and that was that. But throughout the years, we started seeing that in pressure moments, playing these good teams, he's not the same player that he is against these bad teams where he's, lining, driving, doing all those different things. And we started seeing it throughout the years, where in the first year of Mike McDaniel offense, nobody really knew what it was going to be and took advantage of that. And then the next year, we started seeing that people would switch their style of defense, and into the year before, where they kind of switched their style of defense and started shutting him down more and more and more. And now you see this year where most teams are playing with two high safeties. And, Tyreek Hill is great and he does a lot of good stuff. But the problem is the contract. Next year, we are going to incur a basically $28.7 million cap hit for Tyreek Hill. And I would more than happily want to pay that. It's just the way that he is playing and the way that he plays against these top teams. It is not worth the money that we are paying Tyreek Hill. And I love what he's done, and I think he's a great player. But, when it comes to the distractions outside of the locker room, and then when you watch these games, the continual drops from the dude in key moments. Like, it was just a pinpoint perfect play that we can talk about this, where Tua was literally on his back foot. Somebody's about to hit him, and he dimes it in the back of the end zone to Tyreek Hill, and he drops it. And these are the things that, when you're getting paid this certain amount of money, like I said in the last video, Justin Jefferson does not drop that pass. Jamar Chase does not drop that pass. Who else is I'm forgetting the receivers that are in the league, but the top receivers, man, CeeDee Lamb doesn't drop that pass, and then again, another drop that we had for a touchdown, Tua put it directly exactly where the ball needed to be, and Tyreek Hill dropped that one in his stomach as well. And I understand he's dealing with some sort of wrist thing, but at the end of the day, you're getting paid almost exactly the same amount as pretty much the quarterback of the team in order to make plays like that, to make these types of plays. And the first thing that we'll talk about is, honestly, like Tua, we'll talk about like Tua being elite. Tua's intangibles, he doesn't have the intangibles to be an elite quarterback. I think he can be a franchise quarterback, and he will carry this team if you build around him. But Tua's not going to have a crap team and just make them completely better by running around, launching the ball down the field. Like, he's not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at that, that's what you see. He needs an offensive line, and he'll be able to get the ball. Like, when there's a stat right now, I think that Tua is last in the league for the amount of time that he has to throw, where it's like 2.4, and the average of the league is typically quarterbacks have 2.8, almost 3 seconds. So it's the same thing with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is super fast, but the intangibles of him, basically, he's 5'10", he's shorter than most of the corners in the league, and he's not going to be able to do some of the certain things that like a CeeDee Lamb could do, a Brian Thomas, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, some of these receivers that make their quarterback's life kind of easier, because, at the end of the day, one of the things that Tua had in the first season of Mike McDaniel is we had Gesicki. So he had that player that he could throw the ball up to and, could make a catch. Honestly, it helped in the Baltimore game where he threw it at the field goal post, basically, and Gesicki went up and grabbed it. And we haven't had that for a while. And I think the amount of money that you're paying Tyreek Hill, I just honestly think the way that this offense is going, the speedy thing is starting to die down, and it's starting to not really take effect. Before it was like we were getting these bombs, but now people are playing their safeties and abilities so that they stop that. And we need to throw the ball around the field. And at the end of the day, it's not even just the size to go up and catch the ball. It's the radius as well that Tua could throw the ball into where, again, if you're taller, you have a longer range and reach, where you see Justin Jefferson has like 5-6 foot reach, so your quarterback, it's a much easier throw versus, having a Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. You have to literally dot the ball or else it's out of the range of the receiver. And I think that's kind of the issue here. And what we could do is allow Waddle to develop. I think he's a number 2. I don't know if he can really be a number 1, but get a bigger receiver going into next year and trade Tyreek Hill for a draft pick that you can get, maybe a second, possibly like maybe a third comp that goes to a second, depending on what he does. And again, get Tua. I think that's the one thing that's missing. That's why Jonnu was such a lifesaver this year, is because he's that bigger target that Tua can go to in times when he needs it. But your receivers need to be having the ability to bail your quarterback out sometimes. Like you see it a lot with Joe Burrow and, with Sam Darnold. Sometimes your quarterback your receiver just needs to be able to bail you out. And just the intangibles of Tyreek Hill, he really, there's not a possibility to do that, because when you're facing 6'2" corners, you can't just throw the ball up to him. And I think we're seeing that continually to where he's trying to do that, but it doesn't work because he's not big enough to do that. And the one intangible that he did have, he's kind of not, it's not really capitalizing on anything. He's not breaking away from coverage. None of that is happening. And that was the whole point. So when you look at the contract and what Tyreek Hill has been producing for that amount of contract, I personally don't think it's really worth it. The first couple of years were great, but if you're going to go into this next season, people have learned how to take away the top so that Tyreek Hill can't do that. Jalen Waddle can be that guy, and at the end of the day, Tyreek Hill is the fastest player in the NFL, 100%. But at the end of the day, you can find someone that is close to as fast as he is, but 5 or 6 inches taller and more length, so that Tua has an easier time. Where when we get into the red zone, you're starting to notice it that all of our players are short. So where does the ball typically go? Jonnu, because he's bigger. That's typically where the ball goes, or maybe a Devon Achane, whatever. But most of the players were taking it in the end zone. You don't make the quarterback's life easier, and that's kind of what you want. You want to have that catch radius so that someone can throw the ball outside of where the corner can be, and your guy can just make a play on it. Right now, Tua doesn't have that player besides Jonnu, but Jonnu most of the time is going out to the middle of the field, and if you put him a fade to the outside, people are going to know what is going on. So it's like you want to have that guy to the outside so that in the red zone, we're starting to notice that when we get to the red zone, it's very difficult for us to score. It's been like that all season. It's extremely difficult for us to score. And the reason behind that is because everybody's tiny. We have Malik Washington, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. It's like everybody on the other side is bigger than them. So when we get into, key situations in the red zone, it's harder to get the ball to them because they're so small that, they're pretty much covered all the time. That's why I think you maybe look into, at the end of this year, trading Tyreek Hill, getting a pick for him, and then maybe trying to draft a receiver or look in free agency, see who's available, and get someone that may have a little bit more reach and length for Tua to be able to bail him out in certain times. Because, again, at the end of the day, I think that's what Devontae Parker really helped out with. Now, he was injured almost all the time, but when he was there, that was kind of the safety, Preston Williams, Devontae Parker. That's why Tua was able to get those guys, is because they would be able to have the ball thrown up to them and they could catch it over a receiver. And that's kind of what you need. I think that's the next step of this offense is you have the speed, but get someone that is tall at a receiver, like a 6'2", maybe 6'3" guy that's fast, so that Tua can sometimes, at the end of the game, like where Tyreek Hill gets the ball taken out of his hands, you have a guy that you can just launch the ball up to, and he just jumps over the corner and bails the quarterback out. Because every single person that you see, that happens, like every single quarterback in the league, that happens for them a lot. They have that person that does that, and Tua just doesn't have it. And I think, again, for the contract, it's just not not working anymore. And I think you could probably get some sort of picks for him, Not the best. You're not going to get a first rounder, but you can get maybe a second or a third or a couple picks and, kind of start building this again, taking some of the cap space out and, putting things around Tua that work. That's just my philosophy. As always, guys, fins up, baby. Love you all. Peace.